In 1969, Sears built the tallest building in the world. By 2018, the company that built it was filing for bankruptcy, and the popular story is that Sears couldn't compete with Walmart, couldn't compete with Amazon, couldn't keep up with the internet. That story isn't wrong. It's just incomplete, because the people who actually killed Sears didn't sell anything. They didn't ship anything. They didn't run a single store. They were a hedge fund. And by the time Sears filed for Chapter 11, most of the company's real assets had already been moved out the back door. This is how Sears was looted in slow motion, and it's the second case study in a framework I use on this channel to explain every business outcome you'll ever read about, the four forces. Quick recap in case this is your first video. Every company that rises, falls, or comes back is shaped by four forces: market, the conditions they operate in; money, how they're funded, and what that costs them; management, the decisions made at the top; moment, the timing and events they didn't choose. All four are always present. Only one is decisive. The job of this channel is to find that one. So let's apply it to Sears. For most of the 20th century, Sears was the largest retailer in America. The Sears catalog was, for 100 years, the way most of America bought things they couldn't get in town: tools, houses, insurance, eventually washing machines. The catalog wasn't a product line, it was infrastructure. By the 1990s, the catalog was gone and Sears was something different: a department store anchor in 1,000 American malls. Not the dominant retailer anymore, but still profitable, still a fixture. And then the market moved. Walmart and Target took the value end. Specialty retailers like Home Depot and Best Buy took the categories Sears had built itself on: tools, appliances, electronics. And eventually Amazon took the catalog business that Sears had basically invented and forgotten how to run. That's a hard market, real headwinds. But, and this is the part that matters, Macy's survived it. Kohl's survived it. Best Buy survived it. Even JCPenney is still standing, as of this recording. The survivors invested through the headwinds. Sears did the opposite. The market wasn't kind, but it was survivable. Market, a serious headwind, but survivable. In 2003, a hedge fund manager named Eddie Lampert took control of Kmart out of bankruptcy. 2 years later, in 2005, his fund, ESL Investments, engineered a merger of Kmart and Sears. On paper, this was a classic retail consolidation. Two struggling chains combined, find efficiencies, share back office, share supply chain. That was the public story. The actual story was different. Sears Holdings wasn't really a retailer. It was a holding company that happened to own a retailer. For 10 years, Lampert ran Sears. And during those 10 years, Sears closed hundreds of stores, cut billions in capital expenditure, and stopped doing the boring work of being a retail business, refreshing stores, training employees, investing in inventory systems. The cuts weren't survival mode. The company was profitable through most of those years. The cuts were strategic. The cash freed up by underinvestment was the point. The cash that wasn't going into the stores was going somewhere else, billions in buybacks, loans between Sears and other ESL-controlled entities, sales of brands and assets. Then in July of 2015, the move that defined the era. Sears spun off 235 of its most valuable real estate locations into a separate company called Seritage Growth Properties. The transaction generated about $2.7 billion in proceeds for Sears, a combination of a rights offering and the sale-leaseback of the properties themselves. Here's what that means in plain English. The buildings Sears used to own, the actual stores, the land underneath them, got moved into a separate company. Sears, the retailer, no longer owned them. To keep operating, Sears now had to pay rent to Seritage on its own former real estate. And who controlled Seritage? ESL was the largest shareholder. Eddie Lampert was the chairman. Sears, the retailer, was now paying Sears, the landlord. And the landlord could raise the rent, redevelop the buildings, lease them to other tenants, whatever made the landlord more money. Whether that worked for the retailer was a separate question. That's the move, not a single explosion. A long, patient transfer of value from the operating business to entities that would survive the operating business's death. By the time Sears filed for Chapter 11 in October of 2018, the most valuable thing it had ever owned, the dirt under its stores, was already in another company's name. Money, Decisive. Lampert is also management here, so this section is unusual. The people running the company and the people extracting value from the company were the same people. Operationally, the management story is its own kind of disaster. Lampert ran Sears like a hedge fund manager runs a portfolio. Division heads competed for capital, were measured on their own P&L, and were not particularly encouraged to cooperate with each other. Reportedly, executives stopped meeting in person and communicated by email and conference call from different cities. The appliances division would advertise against the tools division. Inventory systems aged out. Stores got shabbier. These are real management failures. A normal CEO would have been fired for any of them. But Lampert wasn't a normal CEO. He was the controlling shareholder, the chairman, and the largest creditor. There was no one above him to fire him. Could a different management team have saved Sears? Probably not by 2015. The cash had already been extracted, the brands had been sold off, and the real estate was already moving out the door. But a different management team in 2005, one that actually wanted to operate a retail business, might have produced a very different outcome. Management was bad, but the manager and the owner were the same person. So when we ask who ran Sears badly, the answer is the same person who chose to run it as a financial vehicle. The management failures were real. They were also the necessary consequence of the money decision, not a parallel cause. Management, bad, but a money story wearing a management mask. The 2008 financial crisis hit Sears the way it hit every retailer. Consumer spending collapsed, holiday sales dropped. The recovery, when it came, mostly went to the retailers that had invested through the downturn. And Sears had been doing the opposite for years. The shift to e-commerce was real. The decline of mall traffic was real. By the late 2010s, the retail environment was genuinely brutal for any business, with 1,000 store anchors and no e-commerce infrastructure. Sears anchored many of the malls that were dying fastest. There were also the pension obligations. Billions of dollars in liabilities that Sears had carried since being one of the great American employers of the 20th century. Those came due during exactly the year Sears could least afford them. But these were accelerants. None of them caused Sears to be a real estate vehicle wearing a retailer's name. That was a choice made in 2005 and reinforced by every spinoff, dividend, and asset sale in the years that followed. Moment and accelerant, not the cause. So let's grade them out. Market, survivable. Management, bad but downstream of ownership. Moment, accelerant, not cause. Money, decisive. Sears didn't die from Amazon. It didn't die from Walmart. It didn't die from the recession. It died because for 13 years, it was run as an asset to be liquidated rather than a business to be operated. The Seritage spinoff wasn't a desperate move by a dying company. It was the move that defined what kind of company Sears had become. There's a useful distinction in the Toys R Us episode versus this one. Toys R Us was killed by a single deal in 2005, an extraction event. The buyers loaded the company with debt, collected fees, and walked away when the music stopped. Sears is something different. Sears was an extraction process. Drip by drip, deal by deal, spinoff by spinoff. The value was moved from the operating company to entities the operating company would never see again. There was no single Toys R Us style buyout that broke Sears' spine. There were 100 smaller moves that, taken together, did the same thing slower. The world's largest retailer didn't lose to a faster competitor. It lost to its own owner. The buildings outlived the company. So did the owner. Next case, a company everyone agrees was killed by Netflix. That story's wrong too. The decisive force was actually inside the company before Netflix existed.